Hi, my name is Greg Barlow, and my colleague and I, Debbie Mickey, would like to welcome you to our session entitled, What? Teach Students to Read? I'm not an ELA teacher. If you teach a content area other than ELA and someone uses the word literacy around you, is this your instinctive reaction? We understand, but we do want you to relax and enjoy the journey. Again, this session is presented by myself, Greg Barlow, and Debbie Mickey, and we're both consultants with State Support Team Region 14, part of the Hopewell Center. Debbie is our regional literacy specialist, and I'm a former middle school science teacher, building level administrator, and now I coach administrators through the OLI 4 program, and I also support districts in using various federal programs. Our goals for this session come from our own learning as state support team members. We all did a book study on the book Teaching for Deeper Learning by Jay McTighe and Harvey Silver. As you go through this session, there are some items in the session folder that you need to know about and be ready to use. First, we have a journal that can be printed and written in or downloaded as a Word document and typed into. Second, an article by Dr. Mel Riddle entitled Literacy Lessons Learned. Third, the Ohio Literacy Standards for Content Areas. Fourth, the final assignment template. And fifth, a resource list that includes the information about this book.
We hope that the video you watched as you began this session has jump-started your thoughts about whether or not you teach reading. We hope this article by Dr. Mel Riddle will continue to inform your thinking about this question. Please be sure to pause the video and read the article found in the Schoology folder for this session, then journal your thoughts. I'd like you to know that the state of Ohio is working with Dr. Riddle, creating several model high schools and a model middle school built around the lessons and actions he mentions here. 3 quotes from the article that we considered very important are on this slide. Unless students understand the words they see and read on a page, they're not really reading. Therefore, every content area requires reading skills, whether it's reading a word problem in math, a lab report in one of the sciences, or a source document in history. When we use the term literacy, we're including speaking and writing. So comprehending instructions and understanding what is spoken or written by fellow students as well as the teacher are huge parts of the learning process in every course. We need to have as our goal in each and every class that students will truly understand what we teach, not just that we cover the content.
Based on our ideas and the content of this article, please pause this presentation and make a journal entry. And be honest with yourself. Are you teaching reading? As you can see from the content of this slide, Debbie and I both have convoluted senses of humor. There was not a single answer to that journal question. But honestly, if you see students who need to be taught how to read words, check with your curriculum director or building level principal for who needs to be alerted to that situation. Or you can contact Debbie for some additional ideas. For now, let's focus on reading for understanding.
Let's examine this statement about deep learning, not to confuse it with the deeper learning movement within education. Our students must read to learn, as that old saying goes. But they need to do more. They need to process and own what they read so they can build real and enduring understandings, not just parrot words they've heard someone else say. Too many students silently struggle with reading and have learned to listen carefully and answer vaguely, and so stay under the radar. You may have students who seem to doze off or have to be excused right before they're asked to read aloud or to answer a specific question about what they've read. It is important to identify those students and get them any necessary help with foundational reading skills.
The focus of what you do with reading and the focus of this session is to help students understand how to approach assigned passages in ways that will help them truly understand and be able to use the information they read. As you see in the first bulleted item, a student who cannot read the words won't begin to understand the text. Report your concerns about this to the administration or your building's designated reading resource person. It is not the responsibility of the middle school or high school teacher to address this need in the general classroom. The other 3 points on this slide are things that only you can do in your classroom content area. Thoroughly teach the vocabulary that will allow students to make meaning of the text. Build the students' level of background knowledge so they can connect with and apply the text. And teach them how to use the various tools specific to your discipline, all of which are part of addressing the standards for your content area.
I'm certain you've noticed by now that neither Debbie nor myself reads verbatim from these slides. But in this case, I do think something needs to be focused upon. If you look at this second part, Michael Presley states, in general, the conscious processing that is excellent reading begins before reading, continues during reading, and persists after reading. Simply assigning a text or other media selection is not enough to ensure comprehension. There needs to be some preparation and follow-up. Please take a few moments to read through these 3 bulleted items. We'd like for you to think about these 3 points, particularly in relation to the classes that you teach, and ask yourself, am I able to do this? Do I develop the opportunities for students to excel in these 3 areas? If not, how can you do so in the future? At this time, please pause the presentation and look at the handout carefully that is found in your session folder. Many content area teachers are not aware of these because they are found within the English Language Arts section. This is an area that Debbie and I have discussed. We feel like they actually should be in each curriculum area rather than just solely in the English Language Arts section. But if you would, please go ahead and read over those at this time.
As you will see in that standards handout, there are 3 grade bands within these literacy standards: grades 6 through 8, grades 9 and 10, and grades 11 and 12. And as you can see from the sample on this slide, the skills used within the same basic standard increase in complexity through those grade levels. This is a sample from the science and technical subjects standards, which include math. You can see that these standards are similar to the same ones numbered point 3 for the history and social studies standards. Like those, these grow more complex through the higher grade bands.
Again, the journaling that you're doing through this session is yours and yours alone. But Debbie and I both believe that you won't get anything out of this session without the journaling. And it would also give you the opportunity to reflect back on your journal entries and to refer them in the future. On a previous slide, I touched upon the lack of logic on where the literacy standards are located, being in the English Language Arts section and not in their respective curriculum subject areas. When you complete this and you are back working with your colleagues in your buildings, I would recommend that you share with your curriculum team or with your grade level teachers as to where this information can be found, because as the questions were in your journal, some people don't even know about the standards and don't even know how to incorporate those. Again, we have to teach students how to read for understanding. And you'll see on this slide that we're asking you to remember the three phases, the before, during, and after. And then if you look at this second item, you'll see the use of any of these 5 tools. These 5 tools come from the book entitled Teaching for Deeper Learning. And that is again by J. McTighe and Harvey S. Silver. You will find a link in the resource list in the session folder for this. The book can be purchased through ASCD, and we do recommend it. All of our colleagues, our entire team that read this and did a book study, we were very impressed with the content.
Our first tool, power previewing, is probably something you as a proficient reader use without thinking about. It's used obviously before reading the text, and it allows you to set the stage and to either engage students' background knowledge or to determine that you need to teach some vocabulary and background knowledge before moving on to the text itself. Consider your own process for learning something new in your discipline. You may use some of these power previewing steps without actually giving them a title. While some form of this has become automatic for you, don't assume students come to you already knowing it. Taking the time to model the thought process involved will be an excellent investment in the long run. If you're interested in this poster, it is available for purchase and the link is on the resource list. The second tool, Scavenger Hunt, helps students read with purpose and not get so bogged down in a long text that feels overwhelming to look at. Students usually like challenges and games, so this approach can help with motivation to read the text thoroughly. While we typically don't like to put too much text on any one slide, the details in this list are key for understanding how to use this tool. You may want to pause the presentation here and make some specific notes about how you could use a scavenger hunt in your content area classes. The single sentence summaries tool really focuses on the synthesis of information. It can also allow you to get to depth of knowledge levels 2 and 3. If you're interested in ways to help your students record notes while reading that can be used to build these summaries, we'd invite you to check out another virtual Summer Learning Academy session called Mission Possible, which offers free Google templates for all kinds of note-making and other learning activities. Again, to share the process for using single-sentence summaries effectively, we needed to put a list of steps on this slide. Please pause the presentation and record these steps to help you use this tool. The Reading Stances tool engages students in looking at and understanding the text from different points of view. Perspective is so important in building understanding. In fact, there's a whole virtual Summer Learning Academy session on perspective taking and empathy called Step Out and Explore. If you look at the graphic on the next slide, it should help you to fully use this tool. As you can see, the Reading Stances tool encourages 4 different perspectives. The first is called either global, as in overall, or literal, and asks students to just see what the text says and identify information about the text. The personal stance brings in students' connections to the text. The interpretive stance encourages students to consider the importance of the information and to compare it with information in other texts. And the critical stance asks students to evaluate the author's work. When considering depth of knowledge, with the interpretive and critical stances, you could get into levels 3 and 4. The link for the source of this graphic, from which this slide is adapted, is on the resource list in the session folder. The final tool included in this chapter of the McTighe and Silver book is called Reading for Meaning. As the slide says, this is a comprehensive tool which is especially helpful in making intentional use of shorter texts. As you can see, the steps of this tool encompass before, during, and after students' reading of the text. The graphic here is based on the speech, The Pleasure of Books by William L. Phelps. The text of the speech is in the session folder below the final assignment. Please pause this presentation and read through the speech. Work to identify the evidence for and against the statements in the center column so you can see how this tool works with a brief text selection. Once you finish that, restart the presentation and Greg will guide you through the final work for this session.
I want to thank Debbie for going through those 5 tools and giving you much more information so that you'll be able to use them in your classroom. Again, Debbie is the Region 14 Literacy Specialist, and as you can see, she's very knowledgeable in those areas. As you digest all the information that you've explored, please use your journal at this time to document your thoughts and to answer these questions that you'll find on the slide. Please go ahead and read through this slide, pause, and then check out the final assignment template in your session folder. You will need to download and save that into your computer, adding your last name to the title of the file. Fill in your plan and how you'll carry it out. Then save it again and email a copy to both of us. That way we can ensure that nothing falls through the cracks. Our email addresses are on the final assignment template. Debbie and I want to thank you for joining us. Dr. Riddle's words are important enough for me to read. Literacy remains the key to improved student achievement. Literacy, purposeful reading, writing, and discussion has always been the cornerstone of education. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy your summer.